5-year-old rising kindergartner student in our district in Alabama that has severe asthma and was denied a waiver not to wear a mask every day. Doctors wrote about her condition, but no one would stick their neck out for this little girl. That doesn't shock me at all. You would think that doctors would have more backbone, but they don't. They are more susceptible to being browbeaten into groupthink than a lot of other professions, and that's unfortunate. But that's the nature of the different professions. Do her mom and dad have any recourse? And I don't know what's happened since then, so you might have to provide me an update, but let me just go back in time and say that this was back when you asked the question, right when school was starting. And yes, the recourse would be that you get somebody like me involved. You file your own due process. You ask for mediation. This is one of those things to where this becomes a civil rights issue because equal access for your child means that she needs that accommodation of no mask. Now, there's going to be those out there, because I've seen the questions also, because I did look ahead to see how many more were similar like this, because now I'm getting into the beginning of the school year, which was a few weeks ago. So I did look, and there are other parents that are saying, well, my child needs to wear a mask, and everybody around my child needs to wear a mask. And the difference between this is that there needs to be an accommodation not to wear one. All right, and that's reasonable. That's reasonable. That's in line with the Americans with Disabilities Act, 504, IDEA. It's that reasonableness standard. On the other end, to where my child needs in-person learning and my child wears a mask and therefore everyone needs to wear a mask, that's not reasonable. That's not reasonable because, see, I've got other clients that they can't wear one medically and they can't wear one. So therefore, this is unreasonable that everybody has to wear one, whereas having that exception for a stated medical purpose, even a religious exemption, guys, you can't discriminate. Forcing everybody to do it is not reasonable. So I disagree with, because that's the standard, reasonableness standard. And that's not reasonable because it also tramples on the rights of those who can't. Now, you sit there and you go, well, what about the ones who won't? Yeah, there's a lot of people who won't. Just like in Texas, there's a lot of school boards, even though the state said that you can't mandate the mask, there's a lot of schools that are anyway, in defiance. So do you see how that works when people won't do things that you want them to do? It's just that some of you are okay with that because it falls in line with what you want. And so you sit there and disobeying law is fine when it's something that you agree with. Whereas with other people and exceptions and the need for those exceptions, the hell with them, right? Because defiance and civil disobedience is fine if it involves what you like. And that's where this little argument over the past year has really, really gotten me. Because I don't agree with extremes, and that's all I'm seeing is a whole bunch of extremes. I believe people still have choice, and they have a responsibility themselves to keep themselves healthy. I don't think that they have a duty. Just like before COVID, the flu is deadly. All right, but it's amazing to me that if you have HIV, that if you happen to have hepatitis, that if you have tuberculosis, if you have these things that are infectious, flu, that you don't have to show a card to get into places. You don't have to sit there. My grandfather got hepatitis from eating in a restaurant from somebody who had hepatitis that, inadvertently didn't mean to, gave it to my father. What did he die of? He died of liver failure. Later, a lot older. So he had hepatitis for a long time. But what I'm saying is he still got it, by some accidental thing. That, did he sit there and going into the restaurant demand to see everybody's papers to make sure that they all were perfectly healthy and didn't have something wrong with them? No, there was no duty to do that. And we got to live in this world. But to sit there and say that we're going to sit there and antiseptically scrub, all risk from it just is insane what we're going through today. And to have some of you jump on that and go, well, you should have to show a paper for what? For COVID? What about the flu? What about TB? What about HIV? Remember, we went through that in the 90s and the early 2000s with Magic Johnson. I'm old enough to remember. Remember, that was all sensational. People didn't want to play basketball with him because he could infect other people. We've grown up since then. We did until this, and then now we've regressed big time. So willing to discriminate, aren't we? If it's something we agree with. So willing to jump on that exclusionary, separate but not even equal. Some of you are the biggest champions of new Jim Crow. We're all about new Jim Crow. Separate. Keep these people separate, lock them away, and let them die if they don't do what we want them to do. And I just think that's ridiculous. But once again, I think in your particular situation, or in this particular situation, if they still are playing these games and you haven't ironed that out, and they have not followed that reasonableness standard, then they need to call me, because I know they're in Alabama. And I don't even know if you would need to be that formal in my involvement. Some of this stuff only requires an email because they're not on the right side of this. No school that is doing the universal or masking is on the right side of this argument. None of them. Whether your child has an IEP or not, they're just not on the right side of this. So it's not that difficult to sit there and sidestep this. Just like the school districts that are defying the governor in Texas and Florida or wherever else. Okay, but then don't be shocked if students defy you. What example are you setting when you're defying law? Then don't be shocked when students defy you.